Welcome to another episode of Building a Leadership Mindset podcast. I'm your host, Nikki C, with another amazing guest. I think it's early where she's at. We're going to get her location and her time zone, but I'm super excited to finally get her on here. Before we get into that, if you heard that beat in that intro, that was actually my son who created the Make It Count theme song. So just wanted to send him a huge shout out to Vicente Cuesta for putting that beat together. Thank you. I love you. You're amazing. And can't wait to get more of that in our show. Also wanted to highlight our sponsors. Thank you to Carolyn Bob Green, who is our lead sponsor of the Building a Leadership Mindset podcast. We also have Julie and Noah with Breathe Capital Planning, and we have Top Fox, and of course, Ladies of Leadership. And by the way, Carolyn Bob Green, it is the founder of Training You to Succeed. Absolutely phenomenal. Definitely check our website, check our sponsors, what we have going on at buildingaleadershipmindset.com. But without further ado, let's get this lovely lady on here. Her name is Yasmin West, and she is both an accountant and a metaphysician with over 20 years of experience. Her own profound transformation occurred during a deadly fires in Paradise, California in 2018. Left with no regular communication methods, she relied on her metaphysical skills, setting intention to get her mother safely evacuated. Additionally, she used prayers and intentions to manifest protection of her mother's home as a fire raged through the neighborhood. After the fire, Yasmin became very passionate to share with others how to do the same type of work for themselves. She became a Reiki Master healer and helped herself and others support the healing of their medical conditions. She currently teaches classes as a regular basis to share knowledge and help them live a more empowered life. To further the reach of her work, both she and her husband started a registered tax-deductible 501c3 nonprofit radio station, www.radiobobusa.com. It is Radio Bob's mission to provide a network of programming resources for community services designed to help their listeners improve physical, emotional, spiritual, and financial balance in their lives. Wow, what a bio. Let's get her on here without further ado. Yasmin, how are you?
I'm doing great. It's bright and early where I am.
Yes, where are you and what time is it there?
So I'm in Northern California. It's 6 a.m. where I am, but I'm an early bird, so it doesn't bother me in the slightest.
Yes, I too am an early bird, and I usually get up at 6, but today I snoozed, so I was a little late to that, but no worries. You know, sometimes you can get an extra 5 or 10 minutes, but thank you so much for being here and waking up early to bless our viewers and our listeners with so many amazing things that you have. Tell us a little bit about prior to this encounter that really changed your life, and you took that mess and changed it into a message. What was your upbringing like? What were some of your passions? And just share a little bit about you.
Yeah, so growing up as a child, I was very blessed in the way that I was very loved by both my mother and my grandmother. My dad didn't want to be part of the picture, but I met him later on in life. But growing up, it was just me with my grandmother, and a lot of love. So I was blessed in that way. Now, my grandmother, she grew up in extreme poverty when she was a kid in Mexico City. I mean, to the point where they didn't really have enough to eat. And so when she came to this country, she did very well for herself. But there was always kind of a lack mindset. So she did really well in real estate and made a lot of money, but as soon as the money came in, it went out. So, we lived this what appeared to be an extravagant lifestyle in this really nice big home in the Berkeley Hills, but the foundation wasn't very solid, and money was always an issue, and she was always complaining about how she didn't have enough money to pay bills. So that was kind of part of that subconscious programming as I was growing up. So and then when she passed, we found out that she had made some horrific financial mistakes. So she had taken out a loan with these people were actual loan sharks, and it's not even legal to do what they did back then now, thank God. But they had like this loan. They secured the house against the loan. It was this huge balloon payment at the end of it, and we had no choice but to sell the property in a distress sale to pay that off and get out of it. So it was kind of a scary time right after her passing. We found out she had all these debts that she hadn't told anyone about. And so we lost our home. There was a lot of instability. And so at that point, I was just getting into my teenage years, and I never wanted that to happen to me. So that is kind of what drove me to go into accounting, because I had toyed with the idea of becoming, a business owner, but having that happen to my grandmother, it's like, well, I don't ever want to be in a situation where I don't understand finances like she did. She signed a contract not knowing what she was signing and lost everything. So I didn't want that to ever happen to me. So that's what started my journey into accounting. Alongside of this, I had always been kind of an intuitive kid. So I was very artsy. Part of my passion, was taking art classes and just, going out in nature and feeling the energies of nature. So I had this extreme right brain part of me, but then also the accounting fit, because even though I hadn't done too well in my math classes, the process of accounting was a little bit different for me, and it just fit the way my brain worked, the left side of my brain. So it was kind of a balance for me, and that's where I felt, well, okay, if I want to go into business for myself, I need to know, how financial statements work and how all that works, so that I can make sure that my business doesn't go under. So that was my initial reason for going into accounting, going back, getting my degree. And in the process of getting my degree, university kind of scared me about going into business for myself. And especially within the business programs, you learn about all this liability and, all these things that can get you into trouble. So instead of going after my dream of starting my own company, I ended up going into public accounting, corporate America. And it was good to me. I learned a lot, but it wasn't really that fulfilling. So that's when I started to get back into more of my metaphysical stuff, just to kind of get some fulfillment out of my life that my career wasn't really providing for me. It was a good career, but it was very stressful, a lot of politics, and just just not like the way I like to roll, right? So in 2008, my husband and I, we had built up enough money and enough security. Well, it was in 2007. We bought our first home together. But in 2008, the housing market crashed and we had to short sell our home. And that was the point where I was like, my God, I've spent my whole life trying to avoid exactly what happened to my grandmother. And here it is happening to me again. And that's when I started to take a much deeper look at my life. And I started to get more and more into the spiritual side and really think about the thoughts I was feeding myself, the fact that I had built what I thought was a safe life. But it was all based on fear of what happened to my grandmother. That was the basis of it. So it didn't quite work because I suffered the same fate in a way. And, you know, of course, there was many things going on in the world at that time. And you can't say it was entirely your fault. You did your best. But at the same time, there was something there that caused my world to crumble again. So that's when I started getting more into things that really mattered in life, the metaphysics, you know, resetting my mindset, paying attention to the words I was telling myself, because these things matter. They build up an energy in your body that really affects everything in your day-to-day life. So I started doing that and just rebuilding with a better solid foundation. And so we eventually climbed our way out of that. And then we moved my mom up to Paradise. Her health wasn't doing so great, so she was a very someone who just loved nature, and so we knew if we had put her up into an area which had like a lot of trees and wildlife, she'd do well there. So that's when we moved her up into Paradise. And shortly after we moved her up there was the fire, which was very traumatic. Um, and, but it was also it opened me up in a way that I've never felt that way before, where it changes you to the point where all you want to do is give and help people. And that's when I started doing the work of teaching intention classes, because people there needed things. They had not just lost their homes, but they had also lost their jobs because their employers' places had burned down. So I got together on a monthly basis. I would drive up there and I would do workshops where we just sat and meditated, placed intentions for people to get the things that they needed to get to rebuild their lives. And for the people that came back, it was all successful feedback. So not everyone came back, but for the people that did, we started out small, like manifesting like a free cup of coffee and just working our way up from that. And people got apartments to stay in when there was, you know, no supply and everybody was fighting for a place to live. So I was able to help those people. So that was incredibly fulfilling for me. And then a number of years later, right after the pandemic, my husband, Bob, he saw the work I was doing and helping others. And he had a former coworker who had committed suicide because she felt trapped in her life. And he felt like he had to do something. He saw the work I was doing. I'm like, you know, I need to do something for people like her who feel like they have no way out. I want to do something that can reach them, to give them hope. And so that was the birth of our radio station, Radio Bob. And it's been a wild ride since. We just keep falling into the right places at the right time, meeting the right people, and it's growing. And it hasn't been easy, but it's been fun, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Wow. So much to unpack here. Let's go from the very beginning. Just the mindset of living this lifestyle, having this, life that, you thought would probably never go away. And it was amazing and stuff like that. And then you come to find out that your grandmother had made this decision. First and foremost, not a lot of teenagers in their teenage years realize the depth of their parents, their grandparents' decision and how it can affect us in the future. But you were able to see that awareness and say, hey, you know what? I don't want this for me, my family, when I grow up. So kudos to you for even acknowledging that, because sometimes we don't. Sometimes we go ahead and we repeat the same things, and we do it intentional because that's what we're taught. You're like, oh well, they got away with it, we could get away with it. Let's kind of cheat the system and all that good stuff. But that's not true. The truth is that we create these choices and decisions for our life. So I just want to really, I truly admire that again, I know my parents' routine. They're great parents. They didn't have an entrepreneurial background. They didn't tell me I could be the president of the United States. They just said, go to school, get a job, pay your bills, and you'll be good. And it wasn't, right? Because you have all these emptiness in you. You have to have purpose and fulfillment, and they can't teach what they weren't taught. So you give them grace and you kind of make that decision, and you were able to do that. And talk about going to college and deciding, okay, I'm going to do business, and then the system scares you, right?
Yeah.
They take all your tuition money, right? They do all that. They tell you how it can just jack up your world. So then fear is placed. Again, external, outside sources that can have an impact on who you are. And I'm so, and maybe that wasn't the time for you. You may have to have repeated that, because sometimes we say we will never do, and it's hard to say when we say we'll never do this, it actually happens, right? So we're actually attracting that.
Exactly.
So many things to unpack, but to have, all of it is for a lesson. It's for, all of it happened for what you're doing today. Because if you didn't go through that, or you didn't experience that, you wouldn't have a story to tell. And how can you relate to the people that are going through those things, right? So in order for us to be able to impact others' lives, we have to have gone through it, have gone through like the mess, right? The dirt, and really find those strategies and things to, like you said, crawl your way out of it. And you and your husband were able to do that. So I just wanted to highlight all of that. Great. I actually got chills when you shared about your husband's coworker. And again, the heartbreak that brings to you, but when you can come up with solutions, right? With the whole point about our experiences is to get solutions, not complain about, figure out how you can be the change, how you can make the impact, and just do. And I just love your story. I didn't know that we actually had more in common. I too grew up with my mom and my grandmother. I too did not have my dad in the picture until I was in my teens. And to be able to have all of that go on and still come out on the other side and say, you know what, I'm here for a purpose and I'm going to live it. So I just want to thank you for that. Thank you for bringing that to our audience, because I know people that are listening and watching this, they're going through the same things. A lot of reasons why they don't do what they're put here to do is because of the fear, because that's been implanted in our head every single day on, you know, if this happens you can get this, if that happens you, whatever those things are. So I'm going to take a quick break. We're going to come back and we're going to actually talk about what's in your bio, what happened to your mom, and then we'll go into we'll dig deep into like the work that you do and how people get a hold of you, and those services. Okay.
Sure.
We'll
Sounds good.
Thank you so much. And this is just a conference recap of the 2-year anniversary of Ladies of Leadership. Here you go. Enjoy.
I am here at Mummers Museum in Philadelphia celebrating Bomb Global's 2nd anniversary celebration. The women who showed up today are leading in their respective industries, and they're ready to not only get inspired, but empower and inspire you.
So from all of the speakers, I have gotten something out of it, not to be stuck and to move forward.
And this just encouraged me to start up again, to take that 15 minutes a day and to make sure that I restart that podcast, that I start writing those chapters for that book, that I get out there and I do what is inside of me, because there's somebody else waiting for me.
I have been a member of Leaders of Leadership for about a year now, and it's been my pleasure to be attending here in the 2-year anniversary with Ball Global, having this amazing group of women and community all together, empowering, inspiring, uplifting. It's been such an amazing experience being here with all this powerhouse. It's just so beautiful, and I'm so blessed that I was part of this group. Together, we empower each other. Thank you.
Welcome back. We are here with Yasmin West. It is about 6:26 in California, where she is tuning in from. She has been sharing her journey to becoming an accountant, to really making financial decisions, and not repeating cycles, and showing what fear looks like and how to overcome that. Also doing amazing things with her husband and the work that she does, which we are going to get into in a moment. But tell us about the journey with your mom. I know you gave us a little bit in Paradise and the fires and stuff like that. And share a little bit about that.
Well, so she's passed now, but, you know, she was an example of someone who just never really got her footing in life. She, you know, her relationship with my father didn't work out, and that really took a toll on her and kind of set the blueprint for the rest of her life. She just really focused on that and never got over that. And she was an actress, so she didn't pick the most practical career, but I have to commend her for following her passion and doing what she loved. But again, because of that, she suffered financially. And so when my grandmother was alive, my grandmother sort of always took care of her. And then when my grandmother passed, that was kind of passed along to me when I graduated and was able to have enough money to support her. So she very much embraced that lack mentality, always repeating to herself, I don't have enough money, I don't have enough money, I don't have enough money, and never really got out of that cycle. So, you know, my husband and I, we took care of her as best we could. helped her out here and there where we could, because she didn't have much money. So we helped put her up in the house in Paradise, and she was happy there. She was healing. She was out in nature. She had a lot of mobility problems, and so when we moved her up there, we noticed that she started doing better. She was more active. She met people at the community pool, and she just had a good life there before the fire. So after the fire hit, or during the fire, it was really quite amazing how everything went down. And I didn't know the details of everything until days later. But I had talked to her on the phone in the morning. I was at work. I was 2 hours away. And she was watching the news, watching the fire, and she said, I think it's going to be okay. I think they have it under control. It's down in Paradise, and she lived in Upper Magalia. So she thought they had it under control. But the truth of the matter was they had no information. The fire was moving far too quickly for the authorities to even communicate with one another. So as soon as I got off the phone with her, I think it was like around 9 a.m, I was listening to some guy. He was doing a live stream on YouTube. He was a former firefighter, and so he had access to police scanners and all that. And he was painting a much different picture. And it became pretty evident that that thing was raging out of control, and she needed to get the heck out of there. We had just moved her up there a year before, and so she didn't know a lot of roads out of town. She only knew the road to the south, and which just so happened to be the road the fire was coming up from. And there were cars on the road that were actually blocking the road because people had to abandon their vehicles and make a run for it. So I tried to call her again, and the phones were gone. So I was completely freaking out at this point, not knowing what to do. And, she was a big person on meditating, and I had been doing that and setting intentions. I knew telepathy can work. I wasn't really in a relaxed state to be able to do it like I thought you had to be, but I'm like, this is an emergency. I have nothing else. I've got to try it. And so I just focused on her safety, putting protection around her. And I didn't know how or where or how she was going to get out, but she was going to know she needed to evacuate, and she needed to go north instead of south. And even though she didn't know the roads up north, somehow she would be taken to safety. And so against all odds, because I later find out that she had parked her car in the garage because there was so much commotion going on, and she didn't want to be harassed. And so nobody even knew she was there because her car was out of sight. All her neighbors thought she had evacuated already. And she had just gone to relax and meditate in the middle of all this chaos. And her neighbor just so happened to come and knock on her door. And he was shocked that she was still there. And he's like, yeah, you've got to get out of here. And and she was moving slow, but she had gotten herself into the car. And just about when she was about to leave was the sheriff coming by with the loudspeaker, just driving by to tell people to evacuate, because they had no time to do anything else. So they were just driving through neighborhoods with a loudspeaker. She didn't know where to go. They told her that the roads to the south were blocked. So she drove up to the community center, and she just so happened to run into somebody she knew who knew exactly how to take her out of there. And so this friend of hers just had a whole caravan of people, and they were driving far up to the north, up through Reading, you know, all these routes that my mom never would have known. And the skies were black. You know, it was daylight, but you know, the skies were black. It looked like nighttime. It was very scary the way she described it. And it was just amazing how she got out of that. And so the whole day I had no idea. And she finally called from the road when she was out of danger and said she was on her way down to come to our house in Sacramento. And I was just so grateful and felt so blessed at that point. It felt like so many things were against her, and yet this miracle happened to get her out of there safely. And later, you know, it was just a lot of waiting, because it takes a while to put out these fires when they get started, especially when they're that bad. And it was up on a ridge, so there's a lot of conditions where, you know, they can't get their equipment up there. So it takes a while when these wildfires happen. You know, it's not just that they could put them out in a few days. It took almost an entire month to fully get the fires out and under control. And so we were just waiting this entire time. We had no idea whether the house made it or not, no information. And so we were just focusing on putting protection around her home to have it make it. And we're just setting that intention over and over again. And then I'll say that there was a moment where something clicked, and we both turned to each other, and I was like, you know, I can't explain this, but I know the house made it. And so later we found that it did, and CAL FIRE started putting up the fire map of the homes that made it. And you'll see there's a line on Creston Drive where the fire came up, and then her street up on Wycliffe, the entire street was spared. So it's like the fire stopped there and kind of went around. And what I later found out from a coworker who knew somebody on the fire crew was that the fire crew was lined up on Creston Drive, and the fire was raging straight at them, and they knew they were going to lose the town. They're like, but we're going to make this stand. We're going to do everything we can up until the very last moment. And the fire was coming straight at them. And then at the last second, the wind shifted, went back the other way, and that area was spared. And I'm like, something happened there. You know,
Absolutely.
yeah. And so that's when I was like, I've got to share this with other people. You know, other people need to know what is possible with prayer, intention, however you want to make that happen. But other people need to know. So that was the basis of my work when I started going up to Paradise to teach the intention setting classes and meditation. And then I got into healing so that we could start doing that within our own bodies as well, and help our health as well. So
Absolutely. What a story. And I'm glad I asked that because I didn't know the details of that, what happened. But those are two miracles that happened, not just as your mom's house is safe. These firefighters, those in action. And I know we've been seeing wildfires. We just had one, the end of last year. You know, just seeing that, and people losing their homes and their hope. But yes, what you and your husband did is you put that hope into the world for these people that are connected with you and through you. So Tell us about the radio station, about your work. What exactly do you do? And all that good jazz, because this is remarkable. It's absolutely remarkable.
Yeah. So, when my husband lost his coworker, his former coworker, um, he had that feeling that I felt. He's like, I've got to do something. I've got to reach out to people who don't have hope, and just, I don't know if I can save anyone, but I just, for me, I have to try. Just
How
for
did that
me.
make you feel when your husband, because you were already in that line of work, right? You're already helping, supporting, and to have your husband recognize the amazing things that you do, because not a lot of partners get that. They don't get that that support. They're just like, okay, do your thing. I'm going to stay over here, but and also I want to talk about, and I'll ask you that question in a minute, but how did it make you feel that your husband wanted to do something and put something in place to support others in the world? Like, what was that feeling like?
I was so proud of him. I really was. And, he was like me. We're working these jobs that aren't, they pay the bills, and, they provide, some nice things here and there, but they're not really that fulfilling. And, I could tell that was taking a toll on his, not just his mental health, but his physical health as well. When you're not following your path, you're not as alive. You don't have as much energy. And so I was so proud of him, and just seeing him do this work. And because he was having quite a few medical problems before we started the radio station, and we're actually doing way more work now because we still have our jobs and we're still building these businesses. And so we're working like crazy, but there's almost like an inner energy that's kind of made us come alive and given us, especially him, give him some purpose. And it's fun, and it feeds us in a way that gives us fuel to keep going. And so I was just so proud that he found something like that, especially later in life. And it's been wonderful. And I was initially worried about, okay, we're going to start this project together, as husband and wife. We've never actually worked together. How's this going to go? But, we've made it work, and it's great. And it's great. And it's like we bounce off of each other. One person, sees a problem and like, oh gosh, I don't know how we're going to get through this. And I'm like, oh no, we just do blah, 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 blah. and vice versa. So it's like when one of us is not sure, the other one of us lifts the other one up. So
That is so beautiful. First of all, I want to say thank you, Bob. I want to send him a shout out. You're amazing. I can't wait to meet you and have a chat with you. I would love to have him on the show as well and kind of get his perspective on his journey. So we need to make that happen. But the other question I wanted to ask is, sometimes, unfortunately, we wait for something bad to happen in our lives. We wait for a loss. We wait till we're tired and just so sick and tired that we finally take action. What advice would you give someone who just has a passion to do something, whether it's fear, doubt, and all those things, but they haven't really taken that step, or they've taken the steps, but they don't feel like they can get there? What advice would you give our listeners and our watchers on that?
Well, first of all, I would say get yourself around people who've done it. Because if you're asking your coworker at your job that she also hates her job and she isn't doing anything with her life, she's not going to give you the best advice for going down that road. So get around people like such as yourself, these people who have built something and have followed their passions and made it work. it's not going to be easy, but they're going to be able to help you navigate a little bit better, because they're going to say, yeah, there's going to be bumps in the road, but you just don't give up. You just find a way around it. One of the things I know from, my metaphysical teachings is a lot of times for change to occur in our lives, I mean, we're so ingrained in our patterns and our routines that for change to happen, something really needs to be shaken up. Unless we're a little bit more open to it, the universe, God, whatever you identify with, needs to kind of rattle you a little bit to get you out of your path, out of your rut. So with that being said, when challenges occur, try and look at them from more of an opportunity aspect, because there's always a silver lining. So I'll say, when we were first starting the radio station, some of the biggest disappointments, the biggest challenges that we had actually opened up something even better. So had we had success early on, we wouldn't have had greater success later. So try not to get discouraged when a disappointment happens, would be my advice.
Oh my God, that's such a great advice. And we were actually on the road to Miami a couple weeks ago, and we hit that black ice storm in Georgia that we have to kind of pull away. But during that road trip, we had a lot of our members from the Ladies of Leadership kind of call in on Messenger, and we're writing an ebook called Rest Stops and Revelations, right? Because at first we thought we were going to get there on time, and then we had drove 4 hours, and boom, our GPS updates with another 19 hours to get there. We're like, what the heck? Like, we're not going anywhere. But it was a scary time. And one of the ladies who called in, she said that her revelation is once we understand that people are going to disappoint us and we're going to disappoint them at any point in our lives, to expect it, and it's easier to forgive and easier to resolve, right? Because we're not holding that against each other or anything like that. I love that you said that. So how can we tune into this radio station? Where can we listen to it and see what you guys have going on? Please share.
Absolutely. So we are a purely online radio station, so we don't have a terrestrial physical location. We're on the internet. And so that location is www.radiobobUSA.com. You just go to the website. On the front page, there's a player, and you just hit play. It's free to listen to. And, we run all sorts of things. So we have a lot of classic rock, that type of thing. But we play like some pop, and we have a Sirens of Rock show. And then in the evenings, we do what where we have like kind of our wisdom drops and our podcasts that we replay and shows. David Shemetsky, he's a life coach out in New York. You probably might know him. And we just did a live stream a couple weeks ago from his white room. So we do fun stuff like that. We get people interested in the station with the music, and then we drop, like 5-minute like quotes here and there to kind of help uplift them. And then we have the shows in the evenings to further their growth and their mindset. So
I love it, love it, love it. And how else can people get a hold of you? What are you working on right now, and just some other things? I don't know if you're still doing accounting or anything like that. I know you still have your work. So tell us a little bit more about that, and then we'll close up. This has been amazing, Yasmin.
Sure. So yes, I still work full time, but I'm building up my Reiki accountant practice. So I do energy healing and also, if people want some help with their accounting, I'm available for that as well. And that you can find that website on the Radio Bob website, but it's kind of buried in the pages. So my direct website is www.thereiki accountant.com. So they can work with me there if they want to do more of like the energy work, like manifestation classes. We can organize like a group class, or individual as well if they want to do that. And if they need help with accounting, I actually, one of our sponsors for the radio station wants me to take a look at their books. And so I do that as well.
That is amazing. Thank you so much, Yasmin, for just bringing so much light early in the morning over there in California and at 9:49 here in Philadelphia. It has been a pleasure. I'm so glad that we connected. Thank you, Yara. Shout out to Yara and Ortiz. She is also a lady leader. She is the owner of BCS, and that's bookkeeping consulting services. Absolutely love her. And this is why we do what we do, why we stay connected with those. And, a simple, hey, you have to meet this amazing person. And then you get them on your podcast and they just bring so much joy and light and hope. And that is you, my dear. So thank you so much. Let's just close it out with just your final thoughts on just anything you want to leave our audience with.
Don't give up. Challenge is a part of life. It just is. So just don't give up.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much, Yasmin. We'll be continue to stay in touch because I am so serious about getting Bob on here on the Building a Leadership Mindset podcast. He's got to be like, who is this Nikki? But that is okay. I love the work that you guys are doing. I have the website. I'm going to tune in and just can't wait to work with you in any capacity. So I'm super excited. Thank you all for listening to another episode of Building a Leadership Mindset podcast. And as I always say, make it count. Bye, everyone.